Hello and welcome to the 36th episode of PauseCast. If you're a regular listener, you might notice something weird here because this is not right. It's just not. I normally am not out here before the show, before the theme. Normally, there's a theme that happens before this, but no, not this week. And that's because I have to preface this episode with a small note. During the recording, it appears that my audio track got a little fucked up. It's nothing that's making it unlistenable, but there's occasional kind of small pops and drops on my audio track. Like I said, it's about 99% listenable, but it's still kind of there. So I just wanted to preface this episode with a heads up about that. If you're a new listener as well, normally we don't have that as a kind of prominent feature in the audio. So if you listen to other episodes in our archive, or if you listen to any future episodes, and even the interview that I did that's part of this episode, you won't notice that audio issue. It's just something that's specific to this week. I've already resolved the thing that was causing the issue, as you can tell by the fact that I sound clear right now. But it is prevalent in the episode, and while that is the case, I felt it was still kind of important that I get this episode out because it's kind of a big deal. So we got a great conversation coming up. We have our special interview with Bobby Schroeder, otherwise known as Ponet, the developer of Super Lesbian Animal RPG. And I'm really excited to share that with you as part of this episode. Just bear in mind those audio issues, and they'll go away next week. Thank you very much for tuning in, especially if you are a new listener. And now, I'm going to take it away. I'm going to let the theme play in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the 36th episode of PauseCast. It's Thursday, the 6th of April, 2017. I am Jessica Alouette, and I use she, her pronouns.
And I'm Mark Hanna, I use he, him. Welcome.
Mark!
Yeah.
It's been a week.
My brain is right now going 2233 because it's doing that fucking prime factorization.
It's doing that prime
again.
number thing again.
I'm doing that every time now. Anyway.
Hello, audience, and welcome to our most hotly anticipated episode.
It'll be even easier next week, right?
Will it be?
37.
Is it a prime?
Yeah, isn't it? Shit, I better not be wrong about this.
Oh my god. Mark, we can't get into numbers.
Right?
we could get into the
series.
Yeah,
it's totally a prime.
The television series Numbers. We could totally get into that. Num3RS is how that is phonetically kind of put out.
Num3ers.
Num3ers. I started watching Lost.
Oh god.
Is that a mistake? Am I good?
I cannot say I've watched enough Lost to have any idea what's been going on ever. How far through are you?
2 episodes.
Okay, I think I watched the first one. I remember, I think I was in school or something when it was first playing.
Yeah,
first
Lost
on TV.
is like...
And I wasn't watching it, but like everyone else was. And they started talking about wait, do you mind spoilers?
For Lost?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm probably going to try and get into it. So
okay.
Let's say, yes, I would very much mind spoilers.
In that case, never mind everything I was just about to say.
Okay.
I have no idea what goes on in Lost.
I'm sorry to rob you of a conversation
No, it's okay.
Here.
It's okay. It's like the
hey,
three
everybody,
things I know about
I'm
Lost.
also just years behind the curve.
Speaking of watching old things, over the past couple of nights, I watched the original 1990 whatever Ghost in the Shell film, and then once you told me after that oh, there's more than one, I watched Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence last night. They're really cool. I really like the sort of... it actually reminded me a bit of Metal Gear Solid in the way there's all the like philosophical conversations in the midst of everything. It was really cool. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna see if I watch the other ones as well. If I can find them somewhere that doesn't give my computer a horrible disease.
I mean, I can probably find some stuff, and I'll let you know.
I've managed to find the first two so far, but like, it was touch and go for a minute.
Interestingly, the next step for you is actually like Ghost in the Shell 2.0 is apparently a remake of the first anyway, or something.
Okay.
It's I don't know.
But there's more after 2. I saw there's like a list on the Wikipedia page.
Oh no, okay, Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence. You actually skipped over some.
Oh really?
There's 2 anime series that you skipped over in terms of like chronology.
See, I know you told me that was an anime series, but when I had a look, and I mean a quick look because I wanted to avoid any spoilers, I didn't see anything about a series. I just went through that. Okay,
Yeah,
well I can go back and watch
what you're
that
looking for is Ghost in the Shell standalone complex.
See, that was in the list, but it was later on, so I assumed it was a later movie.
No, chronology. It's a series, and it is 26 episodes, and that is the next in the chronology after the Ghost in the Shell movie.
Oh, fantastic! I'll have to find that then.
And then there's also a second season as well called Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex Second Gig.
Is that after the second movie?
It is between the first and second movie, both of the standalone complex.
Okay. I don't think there were any. Oh, cool. Like that's good. There's more of it to watch. I like that because I like the movies.
It's composed by Yoko Kanno. She did Cowboy Bebop.
Oh, fantastic! I actually just finished watching Cowboy Bebop like a few weeks ago. My flatmate had me going through it.
You didn't tell me?
I guess not. It's good, right?
Dude!
Who could tell this is a video games podcast?
Yeah, okay, hi. This is a show about video games, but sometimes we also just get into a discussion about 90s anime.
Yeah. No, the thing that actually prompted me to watch the Ghost in the Shell movie is so my brother works at Weta, and finally he's been able to put something up publicly that he's designed on a project he's worked on at work, because normally it's all like secret. And I thought, oh, he did this for Ghost in the Shell. I'll watch the original and see if I can see the same character in there. I don't think that character was in the original, but still, like, it was really cool to watch. But that's what prompted me to do it, and now I'm really glad I did.
Good.
And so there's 2... Did you say it was 26 episodes long, one season? Or was that both seasons 26?
One season, 26.
So wow, cool. There's going to be a lot for me to watch. I like this.
There's a lot of Ghost in the Shell.
Awesome.
And, like, oh my god. You know what? I would, I'd like to go and watch One Piece sometime soon.
Is that the super long one?
Yeah, it's one of the super long ones.
Okay.
In, like, the canon of anime series, I guess. Like, the super long ones I would consider to be, like, Naruto, Bleach, and One Piece. Those tend to be, like, the longest running anime.
Yeah, I haven't actually watched any of those.
I kind of want to get into One Piece.
Yeah?
Because I remember trying for a while, like, way back when, and I kind of want to see if I can just find the original Japanese voice acting. Watch some One Piece.
I have trouble with subtitles. I find it distracts me too much to pay close enough attention, so I always prefer dubbed versions.
I mean,
it
used to be me. The thing about dubs, as much as I like how much dubs are generally written better, because they it's not just translation, it's localization, where subs you're actually doing translation.
Right.
So localizations of anime I tended to enjoy kind of more, and now they're both about the same for me.
Right.
And it used to be that I would only watch. The reason for that was I used to only watch anime. Just like I'd stuff it into the corner of my monitor, and I would have it on while I worked on Photoshop stuff.
I know my flatmate does that occasionally as well. Whereas I've mentioned this before in relation to games, where it's not something I can do. If there's something with story content, it takes my attention away from anything else. I won't multitask with it.
Yeah, I want to talk a little. I want to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah.
A little later here.
Okay.
First though, let's get into what we've actually been fucking playing this week. What have you been playing this week? Is it still just Horizon? You playing
No,
something?
I haven't actually played Horizon. I've wanted to, but I haven't. So I went away for the weekend, had no internet connection. I tried and failed, as I'll get back to. Well, initially failed to play not Far Cry, Just Cause 3 while I was away. I played another like couple of hours of Bastard Bonds, which was kind of fun. But more importantly, my brother and my cousin, who both have recently bought a Switch, had their Switches up there. So I watched a bunch of Breath of the Wild. I haven't played any, but I've watched it. And I played a puzzle game. You just reminded me of the name before the show, but I've forgotten already. Something about clipping.
Snipper clips.
Yes, that. I played that with them, which is a cool multiplayer puzzle game. Um, and then I haven't got around to playing any more Horizon. My flatmate's finished it, so I'm like, oh, I've really got to finish it. Hopefully this weekend I'll be able to get a bunch through. We'll see. But yeah, that's what I've been playing. What about you?
Um, so I've continued my Kingdom Hearts adventure
Hmm.
this week.
Have you finished that
Oh,
yet?
oh, man, that game has continued to be an adventure. I will talk about it a little bit later. Um, Actually, I'm just gonna get into it. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Let's get into this. This is
The
what the show is
ambiguity has me
about.
wondering, like, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing?
Oh,
Did you like it?
I'm not finished it,
You've not
and
finished. Okay.
I needed to force myself to take a break from it.
Yeah.
It's it's at that point, you know.
I'm not
I
sure I do.
Okay.
What point?
Well, it's at a point where it is a video game which has become so deeply frustrating to me because it has deeply frustrating design problems. Um, it's brought me into kind of this stage in which I have to expose myself to what I hated about Bravely Default, which I think I've talked a little bit about on the show in previous
Have you?
episodes. But to address it real quick, I fucking hated Bravely Default
What is
because
Bravely Default again?
Bravely
The name rings
Default
a bell, but
is it's a Square Enix RPG for the Nintendo 3DS, and it was developed in kind of the vein of like Final Fantasy 3 and stuff like that.
okay.
But it was a original IP, whole different universe.
And quite new if it was on the 3DS, like
Yep.
relative to Final Fantasy games.
Oh yeah, very new. But it was
My
this
brain was
take on an older style Japanese RPG.
right. My brain was initially confusing it with Vagrant Story.
Okay. To continue, the
Yep.
reason I fucking hated Bravely Default was that in order to progress the main story, I had to grind. Like when you made it to the next major story area, everything would like wipe your party within a turn or two, and there was very
Oh,
little you could do about it. It
so you have to
was
go back and level up before you
Yeah,
can
you
come.
have to go back and do extra leveling and like come back and try to like tepidly approach it. Like, "Oh, is this gonna work? Do I have enough power now?
Yeah.
Am I good?" And the answer was no.
Is
For
it a random
while.
battle game?
Yeah, it's a random battle game.
And random battles are one thing that really hasn't aged well. I was, if you don't mind a little tangent now, I
I
was
don't.
talking to my brother about the Golden Sun games on our way back on Sunday.
I love
Have
the
you?
Golden Sun games.
They're
Continue.
amazing, right? The Golden Sun games. There's three of them. A lot of people might think there's two, but there's a third one. The first,
Canonically, there's two.
ah, there's two.
The existence of the third is contentious.
There's the first two, which came out sort of together. Like they were a while apart, but the gap was much larger before the third one, and they are like two parts of that story. And the third one sort of uses them as the background to start its own story. But the first two games I played, of course, when I was a lot younger, and they were amazing. But I can imagine if I go back to them now, I would probably find the random battles really frustrating because it's a matter of take a few steps, monsters jump out at you, you go into a random battle thing, like the older Final Fantasy games. And that has that similar kind of grindy thing, right?
I'm not sure that that is the thing that's frustrating about Bravely Default's design.
No?
It was like the random battles don't bother me as much, and
Okay.
I think that if I were to go back to Golden Sun, I would still enjoy the fuck out of that game.
Oh, I'm sure I would too. But like,
I don't think it runs into that problem where it like forces me to grind through it.
but just also thinking of games that have done it differently, like Final Fantasy 13 and Chrono Trigger, I find that approach much nicer, where you get as many battles pretty much, but it's not just you took a step and that step happened to have monsters jump out at you. It's more a matter of, hey, there are monsters. If you get too close, they'll fight you, kind of thing.
Yeah, Xenoblade Chronicles has that kind of stuff going on in it.
That's the one that's set on the giant dead robots.
Yes, it is.
Yes, I remembered something. Okay, carry on.
Good on ya. So Kingdom Hearts has run into that problem where I feel like I'm at this point in which I can't make any real progress unless I go do side content and do some grinding.
Oh, yep.
And that is like the least appealing thing to me. I really don't enjoy that. So like basically the more I go with like Kingdom Hearts 1, it's the more I kind of regret not going with easy 1.
Mm-hmm.
Cuz that interesting underlayer has started to like come out. I've started to see more of it now.
Yeah.
It's not just like barely there and I'm like kind of like hanging on to threads trying to follow what's going on. It's actually like it's here. It's in full force.
But you can't change difficulty mid-game. Oh.
Nope. So I'm kind of just stuck. And last night that kind of it hit this peak after trying to, beat a boss a few times. I had success with one boss that had given me trouble a little earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But then the next one was just a nightmare. As the enemy absorbs magic, like can't do any damage with magic, super powerful attacks, and you don't have Donald and Goofy there to help you out. Did you forget? Surprise.
I knew they were there, but I wasn't expecting that.
No, like, they're legitimately useful. Like, Donald actually casts, like, a fuck ton of healing spells. Goofy has a shield, I guess. He'll, like, run into things and bash them around a bunch.
Okay.
It's quite good. You get to hear Donald Duck say things like, even just him saying the word Keyblade is completely absurd to me. And, like, King Mickey is another absurd term.
Oh, God.
Mickey Mouse
I
is
guess
the king.
that shouldn't surprise me.
No, it really shouldn't.
Maybe Emperor Mickey I would expect.
Supreme Emperor Mickey, even. But, no, just King Mickey. I guess he's there. Alongside just like Tidus is there. I'm saying his name like that just to miff you.
They say it that way too, don't they?
Yes,
They're
do.
wrong. They're so wrong.
Waka is there.
Cool.
Which is amazing. I fought Yuffie and Leon in like a battle arena. That was fun.
Final Fantasy 8, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I think Yuffie's from another one.
Okay.
But Leon is definitely from 8.
Okay.
But yeah, I've just run into that grinding problem, and I've run into this frustrating boss, and I've like every time I try to love Kingdom Hearts 1, it's put up a wall and said, actually, maybe don't love me. And that's really deeply frustrating for a game that's so kind of well loved.
Yeah.
And I'm still at that point with that conflict that I was having last week, where I can see why people love this game, but I also just keep hitting walls, both mechanical walls and just world design walls, enemy design walls. There's just stuff that keeps happening in this game that throws up a wall and says, maybe don't like me. Maybe don't.
I think this particular wall you've been talking about, though, about having to grind, I think that's a really interesting one, and that it shows up in a lot of games where you have to balance the pace of the player's power with the pace of the story, right? Ideally, You want to have some side content they can do, and no matter what, you want those two to keep pace. And that can be hard. I've found games where, like this, if you don't do side content, you're underleveled, you can't continue the main story, which can get frustrating because you feel like you need to grind. I've seen games where if you want to do all the side content, you end up massively overleveled for the main content. If I remember right, I found that annoyed me in Borderlands, where if you try to do all the side quests, you end up like 5 levels above what you need to be for the main quest. And that always bugs me. And I'm going to come back again to Horizon because I think it's hit this perfectly, where just, yeah, you'll be overleveled if you do all the side content and just roam around for ages. But being overleveled doesn't make you overpowerful, which is really cool. It gives you more skills, gives you more health, but your damage output stays the same. Whereas so many games that involve that sort of power curve have got like, I don't know if it's necessarily exponential, but they've got some big curve to power where, you know, you'll be doing like 9 damage at the start of the game and 9,000 at the end or something. There's really no comparison. Whereas if you can strip that out, or if you can couple it to something that is directly coupled to your progression, then you don't need to worry as much, I think, about that underleveling or overleveling. Like XCOM games have done this, where your damage output is tied to research that you do, which takes time and resources that you only get at certain stages in the game, rather than letting you easily become overpowered or underpowered in terms of damage output and stuff like that. So yeah, it's interesting how some games can hit that really well or find a way around it, I guess, and some games can just not quite get it right, and they'll lead to either, oh, I have to do all this side content that I'm not necessarily interested in, or oh, if I do all the side content, then the main stuff is going to be really, really too easy and not have the challenge I want for it. And neither of those things are good, right? Like, neither of them are great. It's tough when you don't know how much of your side content the player is going to do, and you have to have it work for any amount, especially when you also want that damage scaling. Does this all make sense?
Mm-hmm. The progression in Kingdom Hearts has me feeling like pretty rough. Just alongside like all the completely whacked like world stuff and all the retreading. Like retreading seems to be a pretty big theme in Kingdom Hearts here, and it might also extend to I have to grind in order to make some progress, and I've decided maybe that's not for me right now, actually. Thank you.
I mean, one thing you can do, I guess, and this is what I did with The Witcher when I got The Witcher 3, and no, I still haven't played any more of it.
I do want to mention as well, like,
okay,
a thing that makes grinding more appealing, quote unquote, is to actually have appealing side content, which The Witcher 3 has in droves. Where Kingdom Hearts has go visit the same worlds you've already been to, or there's tournaments where you can just fight the same enemies again.
I do have some issues with The Witcher's side content, just in that it's really hard to know where to go to get the content at your level. And when you're picking up the contracts, it doesn't tell you what the recommended level is until you've picked them up, and you can't put them back.
Yeah, and then they're just hanging out in your quest log forever.
And it's just a bit of a pain if you want context. But anyway, what you could do if you want to stop, but you still want to fill the gaps, I'm confident people will have put together YouTube videos of like the cutscenes put together. That's what I watched that for Witcher 1 and 2 to get. So I understood the story better than, just reading a Wikipedia plot summary or something. And I found that worked really well because I got a bit of a feeling for the characters. Not as much, of course, I would have gotten if I played the whole game, but a lot better than just reading something. I'm sure there will be something like that for Kingdom Hearts if you want to say, okay, I'm done with playing the game. I still want the rest of the story, and then I can take that on to the next one. That might be an option.
Yeah, I definitely seriously considered last night just like saying fuck it, looking up a plot summary, and just skipping to Kingdom Hearts 2. But I think more healthily, I'm going to come back to it when I'm willing to spend a little bit more time with it, because right now it's just hit this like peak of frustration. Okay. So instead I'm playing Nier Automata and actually like putting time into that again.
Nice. Have you finished that one yet? Like got to the main plot ending rather than just that special ending you were telling me about?
Nope.
No?
Nope. I actually restarted my file last night. So
okay, so you've gotten further from
that's
the
what
end.
I do. I don't know if you do this.
I do this.
You
I
do this
do.
when you haven't been into a game that you like started and then left off for a grip, then you just delete your file and start over.
I even do that when like I haven't left it for a while. Sometimes I'll just be like, I'm gonna start this again.
Have I talked about how like have I talked about the reason I was ever able to beat The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess?
I don't think so.
I restarted. It's not because the game has a level system or anything like that. But like I was having trouble at one point, I think with like a puzzle that was really irritating me or something. And I decided, okay, actually, I had an interesting thought here. Actually, fuck this. So I restarted the game because I was still really enjoying my time with Twilight Princess.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to spend more time with it, but I felt like I hit that wall. And so I restarted it. And when I got back to that point, I got through that puzzle no problem.
Because it was fresh, right?
Yeah, it took having a fresh set of eyes to come at it.
Yeah.
This was when I was much younger, by the way, so if I get any emails shaming me for not being able to play Twilight Princess adequately, I'm gonna have nightmares for days. Don't do this to me.
It reminds me of the like last ditch strategy when there's a bug in some code you've written and you're like, I don't know what the problem is, which is just just write it again from scratch and it'll fix the bug.
The nuclear option is my favorite when coding.
Yeah.
Hey, there's problems. Hey, I have an idea. Burn it all down. See all of this stuff that we have going on? We could just rebuild it from scratch.
Make the exact same thing, but without the problem.
Yeah, let's just make the exact same thing, but without the chain of events which leads to the problem also. Because there's generally chains of events which just lead to problems. So that's fun. Bayonetta might be coming to PC, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I don't know
like
if
a
you are
port
interested.
of the original one rather than a new game.
Yeah, a port of the original. See, the thing is, on April Fool's Day, now hear me out. On April Fool's Day.
The day where everything can be trusted.
The day where everything can be trusted.
Unlike every other day when everything can be trusted.
Sega, like just the real-ass Sega, published a game called 8-Bit Bayonetta on PC. It was a free thing on Steam. It's the first time that Bayonetta has appeared on any sort of PC platform, and it's published by Platinum and this other small developer called BitBaboon. But it's kind of a thing. It's just here.
I'm a little confused. It's published by Platinum, but didn't you just say that Sega did it?
Sorry, developed by Platinum and BitBaboon, and published by Sega.
Okay, right, gotcha. Sorry.
Now, within this game, this 8-Bit Bayonetta game, there is some stuff hinting at a date, specifically looking at April 11th is the date.
That's not far away.
It's not far away at all.
Next Tuesday, right?
Yes, it is. And April 11th is the date hinted at in this 8-Bit Bayonetta game.
When you say hinted at, how?
So from this Polygon article, Sega's got a mysterious countdown clock running, and whatever it's ticking down to, it looks like it has something to do with Bayonetta. We noticed the secret site this weekend when the publisher launched Bayonetta-themed April Fool's Day joke on Steam, 8-Bit Bayonetta, included with 8-Bit Bayonetta were 2 achievements that hid a special URL.
Achievement.
And going to that page opens up a bare bones site with just the timer and a very faint image of Bayonetta's kind of signature gun heels.
Okay, that's okay. I understand the context a lot better already. Yeah.
Yeah. So the countdown timer is currently at 4 days, 19 hours, and 32 minutes. And the site is at sega.com/14 11 12 19.
14, 11, 12, 19. What, does that refer to something as well?
It's got to be something. But there's definitely a strong hint here.
Okay, I don't know anything really much about the Bayonetta universe. I don't really feel like I can.
I don't think the
guess
numbers have
about the
anything to
numbers.
do with the Bayonetta universe.
Okay.
But the point is, this timer is running, and people suspect that at the end of this countdown timer, we
Jesus
will
is coming
have
back.
a Bayonetta PC port announced.
That's what I meant. Announced or released? Because released would be a cool surprise.
I mean, it could be either. I would say possibly announced before
A countdown
released.
to an announcement sounds like an anticlimax to me. But maybe it wouldn't be if you were super into the franchise.
I think Bayonetta makes up for that by being an infinite climax. That's not a goof. That's a real difficulty that you can play on in Bayonetta.
Okay. Is that just like things deal more damage, or is it one of those weird difficulties? That's a weird name for a difficulty.
Okay. Infinite Climax, called Non-Stop Infinite Climax, in the first game is the highest difficulty level in Bayonetta and Bayonetta 2. Let's see.
Basically, what I'm asking is, does it involve a Joy-Con?
It does not involve a Joy-Con.
Okay.
There's different enemy places, or placements, remixed enemy configurations, harder enemies in earlier stages.
Okay. So it's a classic increased difficulty kind of thing.
Plus, a mechanic called Witch Time, where if you do like a perfectly timed dodge, time slows down for a little bit.
That's neat.
It's a really cool mechanic, and it opens up for some ridiculous comboing. That's disabled.
Oh, right.
I thought there was more stuff that happened. It's just remixed configurations. Witch Time disabled. Weird.
There's a little game I've got on Steam. I can't remember. I think it's called Luftrausers, and it's like a 2D aircraft shooting game.
It's published by and developed by Vlambeer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, same
And
studio that did.
It has a difficulty. I think it's called SMFT or something. I'm just opening Steam up so I can check because of course you read that and you go, oh, I wonder what that means. The game doesn't fucking tell you, but there is an achievement called "What does SMFT stand for?" Okay. And that's it. That's as far as it gets. Like, it just doesn't tell you what it stands for. And it's honestly been bugging me since I first saw it. And that was like 2 years ago. Where is this game? Have I got the acronym right? Yeah, it's SFMT, sorry. What does SFMT stand for? And I don't know.
I have no idea either.
You just have to survive long enough in the difficulty to get that achievement, and it's like, it doesn't even tell you.
See, like, my initial impression of, like, the infinite climax mode in Bayonetta was I thought that, like, that meant the game didn't stop, and it was essentially a speedrun mode. Which I would have very much, like, been super into. Hmm?
Sorry, since I opened Steam, you get notifications. I've got 40% off Inside because I own Limbo. I've had Inside recommended to me by you and one of my brothers, so I should probably do that. Sorry. Just happened to notice that because I was opening it up. Let's keep going. I've got that open now, so I'm going to read after the show. Yeah.
Do you know what was just announced?
No. I don't.
Okay. The Summer Games Done Quick lineup.
Oh, okay.
For this year. So, if you're not familiar, Summer Games Done Quick and Awesome Games Done Quick, the original event, they are speedrunning events, which happen twice a year. Summer Games Done Quick happens in the American summer, and Awesome Games Done Quick happens in the American winter, usually in January. And these events are a full week, non-stop stream of various speedrunners performing their runs. So SGDQ, Summer Games Done Quick, just had its full kind of run list announced. Total runtime of 194 hours of speedrunning goodness.
So when you say non-stop, do they actually do 24 hours?
Yep.
Like someone's always awake? But it's all set. It's all in the same place physically, right?
Yep.
Huh.
It's all just like one big kind of convention center or hotel. I'm not sure which.
Mm-hmm. And some people just stay up super late, or do they like get the jet lagged people to do it?
There's like rotations, yeah.
Okay.
And like if you watch the stream archives, like you definitely see when people are streaming late at night because there's nobody in the audience.
Ah.
But then also just like when during the day, everybody's in it. They're all in the audience. So here's some of the kind of highlights that I'm scrolling down the list and picking out. Ape Escape is happening. Banjo-Kazooie. Castlevania Symphony of the Night, of course. Crypt of the Necrodancer. Dark Souls 3. Dishonored 2 is going to be appearing this year. As well as Doom. Final Fantasy VII, estimated run 8 hours. What else is here? Jet Set Radio Future, Kingdom Hearts 2, Luigi's Mansion, which
will you be watching the Kingdom Hearts 2 speedrun, or will you be trying to finish the game first?
Probably not going to be watching Kingdom Hearts 2 until I finish Kingdom Hearts 2.
I think that sounds
these are story runs.
Yeah.
Half Coordinated, who can only use one of his hands just because of a disability. Half Coordinated is going to be playing Nier Automata for 2 hours 25 minutes. It's the estimated time of that run, which should be very exciting.
It's a lot faster than you've taken, right?
Yep. Definitely a lot faster. I'm taking my time, though.
Oh, that's good. I like taking time with games. You know that.
Yeah, I do. Several Super Mario Bros. Races are happening. Super Metroid, of course, is happening. A lot of Tetris. Like, a lot of Tetris.
How do you speedrun Tetris? It doesn't end.
That's a good question. I couldn't tell you if I wanted to. Some Legend of Zelda, Elder Scrolls, The Lion King for the SNES. Titanfall 2 is also happening, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
Isn't Titanfall 2 multiplayer? Oh no, Titanfall 1 only had multiplayer. Titanfall 2 has got a single player
Titanfall
campaign,
2 has the actual campaign.
Right.
That's going to be a fun one to see speedrun, I think.
Because you've talked about how you've tried that speedrunning that very small section, right?
Yeah, that, like, the Pilot's Gauntlet.
That's it.
Yeah, that is extremely fun. But just, like, the sense of speed at which Titanfall 2 operates is going to make for a super duper duper interesting run, I reckon.
Okay.
Plus, just seeing levels like Effect and Cause, which is the time travel level.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also one that takes place on an assembly line. I think those levels are going to be really, really fucking wild to see speedrun.
Cool.
So I'm pretty excited about this lineup. Do you watch much speedrunning stuff?
No, it doesn't really capture my interest, to be honest.
That's fair.
It's just such a completely foreign way to play games to me that, yeah, like, it's cool, it's fine, it's just not something that I'll go out of my way to watch.
Yeah, it really is like the polar opposite of how you play.
It really is, yeah. Me who will walk around intentionally, like I was talking about the acting sort of in the last episode, right? It's like the exact opposite. I'm trying to not break the game, even in ways it's meant to be fine. Like if you sprint and jump around everywhere, where that would look silly if it were an NPC doing it, kind of stuff. Whereas in speedruns, people are doing things like trying to go through the floor or whatever to get a jump on it.
Actually, I do want to lead off of that.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned earlier Breath of the Wild, right?
Yes.
Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I've been thinking a bit about that game recently because everybody is talking so much about it, and it sounds like something that's going to be extremely, extremely up my alley.
You haven't played it yet at all?
No, I have not played it yet at all.
Okay. Neither have I.
Yeah, neither of you. And I'm kind of thinking about, like, how I want to experience it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think it's gonna be a pretty lonely experience, I think. Is how I kind of want to experience it.
You mean when you're playing it, you'll set yourself apart?
Yeah, just like
Yeah.
total disconnect, like shut down everything, turn off my phone, put on my headphones that isolate 99% of sound, and just dive.
Yeah, this is my favorite thing to do in a narrative game, like Mass Effect or something. When I get Andromeda, I'm going to be a fucking hermit. Honestly, that's what I like to do as well. That's the thing that I've had a bit of trouble with. I mentioned with Horizon, just because it's a console game, whereas usually I'm a PC player, and the console is in it's in the living room. So I tend to try to find times to play it when I just know that my flatmate's off doing something else, so I don't need to worry about that. Like I said, it's not that I don't want their company, it's just that when I'm playing narrative games, like you've just said, it's nice to be able to take yourself apart to that and know I've made it so I won't get any interruptions for this, and I can just focus entirely on this. And that's really nice. Although it's interesting because with this particular game, I've just spent a weekend where there are two people playing it, talking to each other about it, asking each other things, and me listening to it and watching a little bit, which is kind of the opposite of that, right? It's making it quite a social game.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously I don't want to spoil anything. I do know for you, but one thing that I think looks really cool about this game, just from what I've seen from that weekend, is there seems to be a really nice continuing sense of discovery.
Mm-hmm. That's like it's a lot of what I've heard about this game.
Yeah, I think that's a really exciting thing, and it looks like they've done it really well as well.
One thing I've done with Breath of the Wild in the has it been a month? In the almost a month surrounding its release, and it's still part of the conversation in a really big way. And one thing I've done is I've basically cut myself off from it at this point.
That's what I've done with Andromeda, yeah.
I've gone full mark is what I've done here. Because I've actively pulled myself away from it because I'm at this point where I'm like, I wasn't interested in this game before. And now I want to play it the most.
And since discovery seems like such a part of it, you want to get that in game, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there's also this. I think it is just like me going full mark and having this realization of I want to be able to play this, and I don't want to see anything else from it anymore. Because I'm gonna see all this for myself. I'll be able to talk about it. I want to see it all for myself first. And even after just seeing it in motion for a little while, I was like, that's it. This is it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I think you've nailed it with how I feel about games. Just there as well. It's that you want it to be, you want to feel like you're seeing it first, in a way. Or at least I get like that. Like it playing a game where you're getting a new story, just like reading a new book or watching a movie or whatever. I love when it feels like discovery. It's why I avoid trailers for movies and stuff like that, and will go based on it's really nice to have people who you trust to be able to recommend things you'll like to you. Because I can, my brother in Wellington watches a lot of movies, and occasionally he'll just say, "Hey, Mark, you should watch this movie," and I'll just based on that, like I know the name of it and nothing else, and I'll avoid looking at anything else, and I'll go watch it. And pretty much every time he's right, and it's so much nicer, I find, to go into something and like if I don't even know if it's going to be science fiction or a romance or whatever, unless like I'll probably not be able to help but see the poster when I go into the cinema. But it's so much nicer than having seen a trailer that might have a bunch of story points and something in it as beforehand, you know? And it's a similar kind of thing with games. It's just much easier but much more straightforward with a movie, I think.
Yeah, the rate at which stuff is shared about games, especially like individual game experiences, is just that sharing, first and foremost, is like super prevalent and super cool that all happens. And it's cool that all this like personal, like all these personal stories can be formed first and shared second.
I wish there was an easier way to unplug when you want to.
I was about to say, like, yeah, a little bit of that disconnect almost feels like it would just be nice sometimes.
Yeah. I've found myself, so I think I mentioned an episode or two ago that I've muted the word Andromeda on Twitter, but also my feed reader gets it includes feeds from places like Polygon and Kotaku and stuff, and so I've been hiding a lot of articles where I just see Mass Effect, like the first two words in the articles, and I'll be like, I don't want to read this headline, even hide it. And there have been a couple where it's like, oh, I wish I hadn't, like my eyes hadn't seen those few words, but too late. Luckily, I don't think there's been anything major, but like I want to avoid it totally until I can really go into it. And there's no easy way to do that.
No, not really.
Yeah, it's kind of an unsatisfying point to end up at in the conversation, but like there is no easy way.
Yeah, it's just it. Like there's not an easy way to just kind of fully opt out of that conversation.
Yeah, and I mean, like I could stop looking at Twitter, I could stop looking at my feed reader, but then I'd also miss out on a whole bunch of other stuff. So.
I mean, yeah, like I also don't mind. I don't mind being privy to that conversation because even like hearing people talking about like the sense of discovery that they personally have in The Legend of Zelda and all this great stuff about it, I still will have that I'll still feel like I'm having that personal, like I'm discovering this for the first time experience.
Absolutely.
Like I'm still gonna have that.
It's
and
more
I don't think I lose anything from being part of that conversation. And
it's more a matter of you don't know until you've read the headline or seen the bit of conversation. Until you've seen it, you don't know if it's going to spoil anything or if it's just going to be that. That's the thing that trips me up. But go on.
See, for me, you mentioned that you like basically rely on recommendations from like a few people you trust, and I do as well. Mm-hmm. But that generally means like that I'm privy to this wider conversation about a game or multiple games. And based off of that conversation, rather than just like a specific person saying, oh, you should maybe go play this, based off of the broader conversation is where I tend to get like my recommendations for what should I maybe be interested in? What do you have for me?
Yeah, and I do that for some things, but particularly when story heavy stuff comes into it, that's when I like it when I can have someone who knows I'll like it and will tell me that without telling me a single thing about it. That can be really nice. But I mean, also those things where it's that clear that I'll like it and I can avoid knowing anything about it. They don't come up super often either, you know? So it's not like I'm getting that every week or even every month or I don't know if I've got a year without it yet, but they're not super common. But yeah, no, I totally get pulling your recommendations from the wider conversation. It's just if I'm
if you're privy to that, do you feel like you've lost something?
I can. It's like I said before. If I don't know before I've read something whether or not it's going to take anything away, I'll often try to avoid it. Like if I'm on the fence about a game, I'm thinking I might really like this game. I don't know. I'll often, and I mean it depends on what type of game it is. I'll often be like, I'm going to avoid looking at it because it might be that there's an article about it, and if I read that, maybe it will just get me more pumped up for it, or maybe it would tell me some stuff that I would have been able to overlook, but now won't, or some content thing I wasn't aware of that now I won't get to discover myself, and I won't know which of those it is until I've read it. But after I've read it, if it's the wrong one, it's too late. I can't unread it anymore, and that's where my unplugging comes from, I think, in large part.
Mm.
Like, it's good that the conversation is there. I wouldn't want to stop that. It's just when I want to preserve that discovery for myself, I have to pull back from it.
Yeah. Here's a question to follow up with you on that as well.
Yeah.
At what point do you feel like you lose something? What do you define there as losing something?
There's kind of two ways that happens to me. One is I'll see a criticism of it, which might be, a good criticism, entirely justified and all that. But once I've seen that, it'll be in the back of my head, and I won't be able to overlook it. And it might detract from my enjoyment of the game initially. And I might not mind knowing about it further on, but when I'm first experiencing it, I want to. Any faults I see want to be ones I've noticed myself, not ones I've had. I don't want to really call it planted, but I'm not sure what other word to use. That's one thing where it's okay. Now there's something that wouldn't have been a problem for me, but now it is. And the other thing is content I don't get to discover. So if it's something like a character who doesn't come into the story until 2/3 of the way through or something, but they're in promotional posters or trailers or something. Having seen that, I'll know they're going to show up. So it's a different experience to not having had that foreknowledge or something. You know what I mean? That takes away from the discovery a little bit. And I mean, some of them are pretty benign, but I don't know which one it's going to be until it's too late. So I just try to avoid all of them. Like the same with trailers. I've seen Star Wars tends to be really good at trailers. The ones I have seen have been really good with not showing story stuff, which is cool. I still avoid them because sometimes trailers tell you the entire plot of a story, like except maybe the final bit, but you can always guess the very end of a thing that's going to give the whole story away in a trailer. They'll give like the major plot turning points, and it's like, oh well, why would I even bother now? Almost. So, but you don't know which it is until it's too late. So I try to just avoid having to worry about it by avoiding the good and the bad. And yeah, it might mean I miss out on some really good stuff that would get me excited at something. But if it's really something I'd enjoy that much, I'm probably going to get it recommended to me and end up checking it out anyway. At least that's my philosophy on it.
It's your hot take.
You could call it that.
It is a hot take.
I know, I just also saw someone's mention on Twitter earlier to say that hot take should be renamed steaming dumps. So I'm not sure I can call it that.
Yes. I mean, that's about 3/4 of hot takes, but sometimes the take is actually hot.
I wish I could remember who said that, so I don't feel like I'm stealing it from them, but I don't remember.
It'll show up on Google in a couple days. It'll be fine. So about our Breath of the Wild conversation a little earlier.
Yeah.
That, loneliness I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And how I kind of want that to be central to the experience. I was thinking a little bit earlier about another game which would do anything like that. And the one I thought about was Red Dead Redemption. Because that game it's got a really lonely world. There's plenty of people populated around it, but as soon as you leave a town, a very, very small town with no more than a dozen people in it, as soon as you leave that town, there's a lot of nothing out there.
And that's actually been the way that I often tend to play Bethesda games like the Elder Scrolls and Fallout games, as well as avoiding settlements and stuff, and the camping mods and stuff in Skyrim are great for me. And it's a similar kind of solitude experience in a game, which is it's quite interesting. Quite like it.
I like the idea of like a forced solitude almost too. Like in order to
Mm-hmm.
get between all your locations in Red Dead Redemption, you're kind of left to this lonesome trail and your horse. And there's not a lot going on. There's like the sound of the horse's hooves
There's
and
some really good music depending on what part of the game you're in.
some pretty good music.
Yeah,
But
because
there's also not a
there
lot.
is
There's not a lot of people. There's just like it's a lot
you
of loneliness out there.
you've finished the game, right?
I have not finished the game. I know about its ending though.
Okay. You've gotten up to the second area, the second large part of the map.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. The I don't know if this was true for you as well, but for me, the um, times when you go between the times when you first get to go to the new areas of the map are really memorable because what they often are is, if I'm remembering this right and where it is in the story, they've got tracks that only play then, and it's you doing just what you've described. You're on your horse, on your own, on this trail, knowing where you're going with a sense of urgency, and often a pretty sad song at the same time. And I'm not sure if I am misplacing them where they are in the story, but just that part of the experience is something that stands out in my memory.
Hmm. I really like that. Like I love Red Dead Redemption's like world design, especially in that like that principle of it being really lonely.
Oh, I just remembered about there being a sequel too. I got a little excited again.
Sorry. Oh yeah, Red Dead Redemption
Yeah,
2. I forgot about
yeah,
that.
I know, right? Like, cool, good time to remember it. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted.
Because I was just thinking sequel. There's an expansion. It's called Undead Nightmare.
Yeah,
I'm
but
not
no,
sure
no,
that's what you're looking for.
there's the sequel. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot that Red Dead Redemption 2 is like it's a real thing which happening, isn't it?
Mm.
Huh. Weird. Weird. Still
yeah,
not coming to PC though.
I totally agree with you though on that loneliness vibe in it.
Hmm. I hope that RDR2 keeps that. I feel like it's important to why I loved Red Dead Redemption so much.
It's. Have you got up to the final map area?
Probably. Like, Mexico?
No, that's the second one. The final one is, I think it's Port Elizabeth or something. It's in the top. That might be a freaking Pirates of the Caribbean thing, actually.
Oh god.
It's in the top right. There's like there's a town with a paved street and everything.
Oh right, where you like first come from, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly. You don't get to return there until the last quarter of the game or so.
Okay.
But the point I was going to make about that is there's a really nice contrast without giving too much away. There's a nice contrast with that loneliness near the end of the game. I can't really explain more without spoiling it. I know you haven't finished it, but just the fact that they can draw that contrast because of the solitude earlier
I'm
really adds
assuming.
to it. I think.
I would assume because of its populace, it felt.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. But if I tell you what
okay.
I'm talking about, then I will spoil story stuff.
See, yeah, because here's what my immediate thought was. My immediate thought was that because Port Elizabeth is like a much
I'm going to
bigger
check that
city,
is
and
what it's called.
pardon?
I'm just going to check that I've got the name right.
Okay, I'm going to continue talking as if it's the correct name. Port Elizabeth. It seems to me like that would
West
be
Elizabeth.
West
Sorry.
Elizabeth. Okay, West Elizabeth seems like it would be a contrast with the rest of the world because of its higher density populace. So as you walk through, that sense of loneliness is suddenly absent from the game.
That's definitely part of it. The paved streets and stuff give it a much greater feel of permanence.
It would feel like very intentionally alien.
It definitely feels distinct to the other two areas. Like when you go to Mexico, it feels very distinct, and here it feels a lot more permanent, but still new. which is kind of, it's got the newness of the first area with the permanence of Mexico together. It feels very different when you're used to being out in the wilds on your horse and stuff, and so it's like cobbled streets and stuff. Um, but the loneliness comparison I was drawing is not about that, and I don't want to spoil anything.
Okay. I back in 2015 as well was when I first played through Red Dead Redemption. The fact that it's continued to like stick out despite me not having played it since partway through 2015 should like speak to that world design. I'm gonna read a little bit of what I wrote for that in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
This 2015 kind of game of the year thing I did, in which I gave Red Dead Redemption like best world design, essentially. There's a certain quiet in Red Dead Redemption's world. It feels populated, but not excessively. It feels empty a lot, completely intentionally. There's a distinct lack of activities outside of towns. And it feels like the most scenic, natural world around. Horses and carriages drive by on the road solemnly, and the world often leaves you alone in it. The many open world games I've played this year, this is the one that's left me most wanting to go for a casual stroll and take it in. That casual stroll stuff and like the sense of loneliness which pervades Red Dead Redemption still stands out.
Yeah, I think one part of that, because there are the games when you can just go out away from people.
Yeah, sure.
But usually when that happens, any sort of travel, you're bound to run into combat quite a lot. That's not necessarily true in Red Dead Redemption. There's like hotspots where if you go there, yeah, there'll probably be people to shoot. But if you're just riding out in the wilderness, there's not going to be much, unless you get killed by a puma, which does happen. But like, setting that aside.
Yeah, like there's
That's the most terrifying sound in Red Dead Redemption, though, when you hear a mountain lion, you're like, oh shit, I'm dead.
There's big areas of Grand Theft Auto 5 which are theoretically like that, but in reality aren't. Like, even those like open spaces wherein even in those open spaces wherein you are theoretically far from people, it doesn't ever feel like you're really far from anything. It still maintains that feeling of the city environment. You can still hear the sounds off in the distance. So there's never really that sense of disconnect. Like the only exception I can think of would be at the beach sometimes, and even then there's still like a couple of jet skis and stuff out kind of in the wilderness. On the mountain area of Grand Theft Auto 5, there's still people going on the trails, and there's like enough of them that the world feels very, very populated. Which it makes sense. You're right next to a big city. And it definitely doesn't evoke that same feeling, even in those attempted like moments where you want to disconnect. Grand Theft Auto never lets you fully disconnect from the reality that you're living in a heavily populated big city area. Red Dead Redemption offers this really weird opportunity for you to just disconnect from other people. I mean, video games in general do that. If you want to like go deep into that, like it's if you wanted to play a video game, you could just like immerse yourself in that and disconnect from real people. But digital, like even then, you're still connecting with digital people a lot of the time. And to have that opportunity offered to me by like Red Dead Redemption it's something that continues to stick out. I still am so into that.
One thing that as well is really nice for me in Red Dead Redemption is like how I've talked about acting. It's hard in Red Dead Redemption to act in a way that's incongruous with the character you're playing. Because when you do that, when you go out in the wilderness and stuff, it feels like just something that they would do. Like it feels totally reasonable to do. Whereas in some other games, like in when I'm playing Just Cause, and I know it's a fuck around game based on B-movie jokes, but still, if I go out somewhere away from a road and walk around, it doesn't feel like what I'm supposed to do at all. It's really different. I mean, that's because I'm supposed to be flying around in a wingsuit at high speed. That's like it does. Red Dead Redemption did Solitude really well because it felt like it fit really well. It's the same kind of thing you were just talking about with Grand Theft Auto, where it didn't fit there, but it does in Red Dead.
I think it's going to fit very much in Breath of the Wild as well. I think Breath of the Wild is going to go kind of alongside Red Dead in that canon of games which give me that feeling. I'm looking forward to that a lot.
So what's your plan then for getting a Switch?
None. I'm going to get the Wii U version.
Oh, I didn't realize there was a different version.
Yeah, there's a Wii U version, so that
Oh, okay.
it's probably the last game that will ever be made on the Wii U. Oops.
I mean, I'm just waiting for Monster Hunter to come out on the Switch to get me to get one.
Yeah,
basically.
I mean, that's going to be your kind of... That's going to be your end game, basically. I'm just, like, if I'm going to pick up Breath of the Wild's going to be on the Wii U. Means I don't have to spend $600 on a system to play one game.
Yeah, they're expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive. I mean, it's got a good game on it, but I can also pick up that good game on a system I already own, which, to be fair, was not the case for a lot of, like, people who are now playing Breath of the Wild. Most of those people didn't own a Wii U by virtue of the Wii U being a system, much like the PS Vita, which sold 2 copies. There were 2
Where'd the
Wii
other
Us
one go?
made. I was somewhere in Europe. I don't know.
Oh, that makes sense.
France. I'll say France.
My ex-flatmate bought a Wii U, so he must have got the other one. He got it for Monster Hunter. Whereas there was a Monster Hunter game that you could swap your save between a DS. Was it a DS?
Yeah, it would have been
Or
Monster
PSP,
Hunter 3 Ultimate.
Yeah, that'd be it. And you could swap it between the Wii U and the DS. So I had it just on the handheld, and he had it on both.
Huh.
So you would have got one, he would have got the other one. Don't know how he did multiplayer.
I remember Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate's multiplayer being like, you have to connect to the Wii U version, and then you can do everything. Like what?
Yeah, you could only do local multiplayer on handheld. It was not great in that respect.
No.
But I mean, it was, I think, only the second one that allowed online multiplayer, if I remember right. Because like Monster Hunter 2, Monster Hunter Freedom 2 didn't, the handheld ones. Anyway, I'm going off on quite a weird tangent there, quite unrelated.
No, you're good. This is Tangents, the show.
Yeah. I it's nice now that just all the handheld ones that come out have just got online multiplayer. It's way nicer. Even though I haven't used it in the last 2. Like, it's nice to know it's there. Oh, actually, no, that's not true. I have used it, but only with, like, people I specifically want to play with, not randos.
I mean, that's fair. Man. Yeah, the more I think about Breath of the Wild, the more I, like, really, really want to play it. I'm super craving that kind of experience. But
you've got something on the way, though, right?
yeah, I have Persona 5 on the way. Oh my god, I'm gonna die. Dude, there's so many video games, I don't even know where to begin anymore this year.
Well, I just downloaded Inside, so I've got that on my list now.
Oh my god, yeah. I should play Inside. I haven't done that yet. What am I doing?
What are you looking forward to playing this week? I know the answer, but I'm going to ask.
Well, if Persona 5 gets here, maybe, I don't know. I think most likely this week I'm looking forward to maybe diving into more Nier. And I'll say that like definitively. Like I'm gonna go do that. I think that's a good use of my time while I take a break from Kingdom Farts.
So definitely Nier.
Definitely Nier.
And if you get Persona 5, also Persona 5.
Like I might do Persona 5 if it gets here in time. We'll
Only
see.
might.
Only might. I might
really?
I might continue to just stuff time into Nier, and then I will wait.
I'm a bit surprised because you've been so excited, but I suppose if you want to wait
really
until you
excited
can really
about
get into it.
But I'm trying to stick to one big game at a time now. I'm
Gotcha.
actively
Yeah.
trying to like cut back on the amount of big games that I'm playing because it just results in me getting halfway through a trillion games and then craving death. So instead, I've decided on the approach of maybe I like do all this more reasonably
Fair enough.
and take on a big game at a time, or like potentially a big game plus a big game with like smaller bits and pieces that I can do.
Hmm.
So I think Nier is going to be my big thing this week. I'll let you
Cool.
know. I'll let you know how that goes. At a guess, pretty good. We will see. How about you? You've got some stuff probably.
I don't know if slash when. Well, I should at some point. I don't know if it'll be this week that I try Inside. I have it in my library now, but I definitely want to get through more Horizon. Um, I don't know if I'll be able to finish it in the next week, but it'd be nice to. Not to be done with it so much as to know how the rest of the story is, because I've been really pretty into the story so far. And I know my flatmate's finished it and really wants to talk about it as well. But he's good. He won't talk about stuff that I don't want spoiled. So he's good like that. But that's the main thing I think I'm going to be doing. I'm going to look up those seasons of Ghost in the Shell now that I know they exist as well. I want to watch that. So that might eat into some of my Horizon time, like how it has this week with the movies. But yeah, I think that's my plan.
Sweet. So, right now, we're not going to get into where you can find us because we actually have cool stuff happening. In addition to our regular episode this week, we actually have a very special interview. This was an interview I recorded a couple weeks ago at this point, and it's an interview with Bobby Schroeder, who is a game developer. They, them, or she, her pronouns. And we had a chat about the development of their upcoming game, which is called Super Lesbian Animal RPG. And we talked a lot about what the first draft of that game was, which was a fan project for My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, which was called Super Lesbian Horse RPG. So we talked about the process of having that first draft. Um, we talked about kind of the process of taking it from that first draft status, and bringing it all together into something new and original, putting new characters in it. What changed? What is going on? Um, it's a really fascinating interview. This week, for everybody, we have this 30-minute clip from that interview. If you would like to listen to the full interview right now, which is 80 minutes of just a really fantastic interview. It is available for our patrons, who I would like to quickly just take a second and thank now. Thank you to Ash Yee for your support at the time of recording. So right now, the full interview, 80 minutes, it's available to our patrons in addition to our shout-outs kind of every week. We'll make sure that we thank you for your patronage. You get access to detailed show notes, and you'll get early access to stuff like this, interviews, and also spoiler casts, which by the time I'm posting this, and by the time you're listening to this, probably I will be either mid-recording or all the way through recording a spoiler cast with Sid from the I'm Just Playing podcast about Night in the Woods, which I think will be super interesting. And that'll be up probably sometime in the next couple weeks, with a couple of weeks of early access for our patrons. So, again, full interview. early access to spoiler casts, thanks at the end of each week, and access to super detailed show notes going over everything that we talked about in the week. And that is available at patreon.com/PauseCastShow, and it's available for as little as $1 a month. You can put more in if you'd like, and we would certainly appreciate your support. But all we ask for is $1 a month, and you get access to all of that early content. So, we'll take a break here. The live myself and Mark will take a small break, and we'll be back at the end of this clip. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome to a very special interview with Bobby Schroeder, otherwise known as Ponet, the creator of Super Lesbian Animal RPG. Bobby, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here. I usually use they or she pronouns.
Terrific. So, I'm here to talk to you today about Super Lesbian Animal RPG and a little bit about its origins as well. Super Lesbian Animal RPG is a project you've been working on for a few years.
Right.
Can you tell me a little bit about the project, just to start us off?
So Super Lesbian Animal RPG is an RPG Maker project I've been working on and off pretty inconsistently since 2013, beginning of. I released it under a different title in the end of 2013. I worked on some other things in 2014, and then I picked it back up, started remaking it with new characters in 2015, and announced it at the end of that year. So it's a RPG, made an RPG Maker starring a character named Melody Amaranth, who's transgender, and she's recently become a paladin, so that she can go on adventures with her girlfriend Allison and their friends Claire, who is a witch, and Jody, who is a knight. And obviously all of them are animals, hence the title. And they're all inexperienced adventurers that kind of get roped into a situation that's much, much beyond their scope of experience, and they just kind of have to figure out what to do from there.
All right. Super Lesbian Animal RPG. You mentioned that it had like this kind of original release, something of a first draft essentially, and that was Super Lesbian Horse RPG.
Yes.
And can you tell me a bit about that project?
So it's interesting that you call it a first draft, because people are often kind of confused about like what the remake is in relation to the original game, and I think that's a pretty good way to put it. It started out as a fan game using My Little Pony characters, because I was a big fan of the show. I still kind of am, but especially back in like 2013, I was a big fan of the show, and so one day I was just like, man, I wanted to go to college for game design and whatnot, but that didn't really work out as I planned. So I'm like, I should just start making a game on my own, and RPG Maker was an easy enough tool to start learning with. So I just kind of started messing around, and within like 2 days, the basics of the beginning of the game were down, and it just kind of evolved into this weird jokey mess that as it went on got less jokey and more sincere. And it was a very strange project in hindsight.
So you basically what you're saying is that you learned to develop games kind of from scratch for this project, right?
Yeah.
What was that process like? Like what brought you to that point where you decide, oh, I really want to make a game about this, but I don't know anything about game dev. I guess I'll start here. What was that whole process like?
I mean, I guess I kind of just learned about it as I went. Like, it helps that I have this massive crutch with RPG Maker, because I don't have to do a lot of coding per se. I can do like scripting for events and cutscenes and kind of set things up to run the way I want, but I don't have to go into the engine and render how it arranges tiles and stuff like that.
Right.
So I've kind of picked up through osmosis. I think I've mostly been learning about the design level of things and like how to structure things and pace things and just like storytelling principles for games rather than the programming side of things through this, which has been a pretty good experience. I just kind of pick up things mostly through like if I'll have some problem with something, I just Google it or like there's YouTube resources for everything and especially lots of like critiques of existing games on YouTube from people like Errant Signal or like Matthew Matosis or what have you, Game Maker's Toolkit, and more recently, you can just watch these videos and like see what they have to say about games that are already out there, and you'll learn so much about design principles and like do's and don'ts.
Super Lesbian Horse RPG being a like fan project, especially for something like My Little Pony. Did you feel that like you or your audience kind of took that any less seriously, just like on the basis that it's a fan project?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's kind of like this double-edged sword because when you're doing something with established characters, you can, first of all, like people are already familiar with the characters, so you don't really have to waste time introducing them. You can just go. And also, you can show people this game and be like, hey, you guys like these characters. Here's this game with these characters that you like in it. But then you aren't really going to get new fans based on that too much. Like, nobody who didn't already like My Little Pony is probably going to give a game about Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash being gay and going on an adventure second chance. They're just going to, like, scroll past it, like, I don't care about this. Even if I try to elaborate, like, no, well, it's actually in this original world and not in the world of the show, and there's a bunch of original characters and enemies and, like, this whole original story that I came up with, and I was really only using the characters because I like them, and it's not a weird brony fan fiction thing, and that's the hardest part, because the brony fandom, unfortunately, is really, it's a weird community, and it's gotten a lot of stigma, you know, not to harsh anyone's vibe or anything, but it's like there's been some very weird things that come out of that fandom that make it hard to present some like totally innocent My Little Pony fan content and be like, no, it's not weird, I swear.
Yeah, I know firsthand. I was in the shit. I was there. It was like the whole evolution of that fandom was just, it was completely whack. Like, the fact that it existed to begin with, the fact that, like, so many people got so into the show was, first of all, it's just indicative of the show's quality. And then, gradually, it got weird.
I think it started to get really weird as, like, it became this weird clash as social justice started to get more of a big thing on the internet. Like, people started to get more educated on these issues, and women in the fandom, especially like teenage girls and like women who had grown up with My Little Pony, started to kind of be like, I don't know, this is a little weird, and it just kind of got really toxic. Oh god, especially in like 2013, like right when I was making the game, that was like really when people started to kind of jump ship and be like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it for watching this cartoon.
I have the most like vague memories of all of that happening.
Oh god, yeah.
It's so bizarre to like reflect on, and I still really love the show. Yeah. I think it's really great, especially those first few seasons. I will admit I haven't like kept up with it since. I wonder if what contributed to that also was like the creators began to pander to this aspect of the fandom that was getting really weird and toxic and kind of ruining everyone's experience. And I wonder how much that kind of dragged everything back, you know?
Yeah, a little, I think. It kind of seemed like the Brony community, like the male fans especially in the fandom, really thought that there was something particularly special about the fandom when it was just like, you know, just a pretty normal, if very active and passionate fandom for any cartoon. It's like, it's not like they got whole documentaries about it, but it's not weird for adults to be watching a kids cartoon in this day and age. Like, everyone watches Adventure Time, shows like that, Steven Universe, regular show, whatever. It's just they kind of felt like they were owed more by the show just for showing up. And then,
well, I mean, that the way I interpret that is the show was seen as like a girls' club.
Yeah.
And it was this huge infiltration of, well, I say infiltration that makes it sound really gross. It kind of was, but it was this huge movement of guys suddenly wanting into the girls' club. And because they got in, they wanted like a cookie for it.
Yeah, it's like the show definitely played into that, where they'd start referencing more fandom memes and stuff. Not like hugely, except for like one episode that was like all fandom memes, but they started kind of pandering a little bit to them. It was just, I don't know, it was just kind of a mess from like 2012 onwards, really.
Brings me back a bit.
Yeah, same.
I want to get back to Super Lesbian Horse RPG a little bit more.
Yeah, of course.
The way I kind of understand it, stuff like this, like the process of taking like Super Lesbian Horse RPG and bringing it into its own original thing, like Super Lesbian Animal RPG, it's a pretty rare thing to happen in like any media. And the most famous example I can think of this is 50 Shades of Grey, which infamously or famously, depending on how you want to look at that, it started out as fan fiction for Twilight. And whenever I've told that story or whenever I've heard it told, it's always been this like really, really negative thing. So what I want to know is, can you talk about a little bit of what motivated you to actually like go through the process? What made you arrive at that point where you wanted to take Super Lesbian Horse RPG and turn it into something original? What brought you there and why?
So, like, immediately after I finished Super Lesbian Horse RPG, which I finished on Christmas 2013, which was my birthday, and was a very bad decision because I spent my entire birthday frantically trying to fix bugs that people found in the game. I finished the game, and I immediately started working on my next project that, as soon as I had the idea for it and, like, one piece of concept art, I'm like, guys, I'm making this new game. And
this was Andromi, right? Just to
right.
be clear?
That's a game I still want to make, but it's kind of on the back burner right now. So I announced that, and I'm like, all right, now I'm like a real game developer, and I just kind of I realized that I wanted to reincorporate a few things from Super Lesbian Horse RPG into future projects, or at least to be able to do that. But I realized that the game was kind of getting lost to the sands of time in a way, partially because of legal issues with Hasbro, because I didn't think it would be a problem, but after the game came out, they started to remove uploads of the game to like Mediafire and whatever. And I didn't really think it would be that big of an issue because they'd only done that with like really big games that got coverage and like Game Informer and looked super professional and looked exactly like the show.
The one by Main 6, right? That
Yeah.
was Fighting is Magic, which then eventually also became its own original thing, and with the backing of Lauren Faust, the original creator of the show, no less.
Yeah, it was kind of the same thing. I didn't really openly talk about it much because I'd kind of moved on, and also because Hasbro didn't take down all of the uploads of the game, so I figured I was like on thin ice or something, and if I just didn't say anything about it, I could just ignore it and everything would be fine. But
that's a really weird position to find yourself in as a creator, isn't it?
It really was, because like I had it on like Mediafire, Mega Upload, and like my Dropbox, and they only took it down from Mediafire, but it was clearly like, yeah, here's Hasbro's lawyers taking it down because of their intellectual property. I didn't really understand. But also it was like, I wanted to be able to use these characters again, and I wanted people to know where they were from, but I couldn't really distribute the original game because of legal issues, and also I kind of realized that, like, for better or worse, it did look weird having my first game be like a My Little Pony shipping fanfiction in RPG Maker form, and like I'm still super proud of that product, but it's like part of me knew that people would be able to enjoy the story, and I would be more proud of it if it was something original, and like I'd be able to do more with it. And even if I had like new protagonists, then potentially if people liked the game, I could do more with them and tell more stories with them. And I guess it was really originally just for myself to kind of like just to reclaim the original game and make it more my story instead of being like something that used someone else's characters and that made it less original in most people's eyes.
So, as well, I want to talk about I want to now delve into the process of actually taking Super Lesbian Horse RPG, taking those bones that you had there, and making it into Super Lesbian Animal RPG. Can you talk a bit about that? What did you bring over? What did you decide to leave behind, besides the characters, of course?
Well, I think it's still kind of an ongoing process of me looking at a part of the game and going, all right, what can stay, what can go, what should I change? Because I don't want it to just be this thing where people look at it and go, oh, so it's got this, and this characters, and these are clearly these My Little Pony characters in reality. And also, just because it was a game I made when I was 19, and I didn't know anything about game design really, so it really showed in a lot of areas how amateurish it was. Like the first dungeon, the first half of it was basically just a straight line, because I was like, I looked at the blank RPG Maker canvas and I'm like, what the hell do I do with this? What kind of shapes do I do to make a fun dungeon? And so I'm just like, oh, I know, I'll make it a joke. It's a bad dungeon. That's really funny. So it wasn't that funny. I don't know. People, it's weird. I was originally just going to like replace the characters with new designs, switch all their names, and make like one of the first dungeon more fun to actually play, and like throw in a new dungeon like halfway through the game, and then like call it a day. And I was gonna go right back on to working on like quote unquote real projects, because it was really just a personal project for me, because I struggled with working on Andromi for a while, because of course it was such a smart idea to go, all right, I made an RPG Maker game, now I can make something from scratch in Unity, perfect, I'm ready for that. So I just decided to start reworking things and Super Lesbian Horse RPG, and over time I just started changing more and more and adding more and more. I guess it really started with the characters, and I started to think more about like, okay, these are my characters now, so I can like push their personalities in a direction that I want, instead of having to cling to the original canon of My Little Pony, because it's a completely different thing now.
In that sense, was that a little bit freeing for you to be able to like be freed from the chains of like, oh, I have to stick to X established character and they act in this way, but now I can flesh them out in so many different ways. Was that like a really freeing experience for you?
Oh yeah, totally. Because I mean, I'd always get comments about like, oh, this one scene, they're a little out of character, and like admittedly they were sometimes, because I was already taking liberties with the characters in some places, and just like I don't care about that aspect of the character. That's not really important to the story I want to tell, so I'll just use something different, or just like kind of brush it under the carpet. But now it's like, no, these are my characters that I'm establishing, and they can't be out of character, because this is the character. This is the only thing they've ever been, and this is establishing what they're like. And I can use that in a lot of I feel like I can use it to tell a much more interesting and meaningful story than I ever could with someone else's characters. And I'm really enjoying the process of writing these characters. Like I think especially in the wake of games like Night in the Woods, I've come to realize that you can add so many little details about characters' lives that are like true to real life, even in a fantastical video game with talking animals. And it's just really nice to see characters that like reflect your own experiences, and I think that's a big part of it. So like I'll be like, oh well, this character kind of had like a crappy home life growing up, and that's why she's done like XYZ now in the present, in the current storyline, and it's just allowed me to tell a much better story, I think.
It's a really, really fascinating process to like hear about. And I can only imagine how awesome it must have felt to be able to go through all of this.
I think in particular, one of the things I'm able to change that's a little more subtle, maybe. I don't know if it's either subtle or just blatantly obvious, but like being able to change the characters' voices, just the way they speak in general. Because like when they were My Little Pony characters, the My Little Pony is written very differently from how real people speak a lot of the times in ways that you might not immediately notice, just because it's a children's cartoon and the characters are supposed to be like adults, but they also kind of act like children to make them more relatable to kids. And now I can just totally ignore all of that, and these characters can just talk like the people I know.
I think it's one thing that I saw him praise a lot in Night in the Woods, which you mentioned a little earlier here, as well, was like how natural that like dialogue felt in that game, but also how much it like connected to internet speak, how we talk on the internet, how we have to phrase all of that, and how it felt really great to read still, but it also just felt like internet speak. And I thought that's a really interesting way to approach dialogue like that. What do you think your approach to writing dialogue that you want to sound like natural and normal is?
I think it's kind of always a constant struggle because you want to convey certain things about the characters and you want to move the plot forward, and you also, in my case, it's like kind of a comedy game, so there's like jokes I want to put in, but I don't want them to sound like they're just reading off of a script, like things that were predetermined to say. I always want it to feel smooth, like transitioning from one topic to another. And I also am paying very close attention, trying to make these characters actually sound like they're friends, because I think that's something I kind of struggled in the original game with. I think I kind of got away with making them more belligerent with each other for the sake of jokes, just because like they're from a cartoon where they are all best friends and you can just go into the game knowing this already. So I'm trying to flesh out a little better, like why do these characters like each other, like what their dynamic is and how that comes across just in casual conversations. And I don't know, I think I'm constantly revising the script to kind of tweak little lines here and there, and I think it's really lucky that I'm not making a game with voice acting, because I would just suffer having to turn in a finished script months before the game is done, because I'm always changing things to make it sound more natural or add in a funnier joke or whatever to random bits of dialogue on a treasure chest, some random spot in the game or whatever.
Yeah, I remember Scott Benson mentioning before Night in the Woods launched as well that the reason that they didn't have voice acting for Night in the Woods was that the word count was legendary, quote unquote.
Oh god. Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah, the writing in that game is so extensive. Do you feel like you're trying to go for a really extensive writing approach even in this like smaller scale project?
Yeah, I think I am. I mean, I'm adding a lot more player choice this time around. Not like in a you can completely change the ending way, but more like there's never going to be like a scene that's longer than 10 lines where you can't at least choose something for Melody to say. And there's lots of little bits of story spread throughout the world where you can find just little optional content that might add a little side story to enhance your knowledge of the characters in the world, and just lots of little things like that all over the place. I think that's kind of like one of the most fun things for me to do with the game, really.
Is figure out player choice?
Well, just to like, kind of flesh out the world and the story and put lots of little things for players to find. Like that was kind of one of the things I had the most fun with in the original game, was putting all sorts of weird stuff as like Easter eggs and just kind of giving players a little playground to run around and find all these weird little things.
Let's go back a little bit in the conversation to the process of converting SLH RPG into SLA RPG. I mentioned earlier that like 50 Shades of Grey example,
Right.
and that being like the most well-known example of fan fiction being turned into something completely original. And I kind of wonder if there's a reason that more prolific fan work creators don't go through this process a lot. Like, a lot of fan fiction just kind of stays as fan fiction. Do you think that there's a reason for it?
I think it's something you're going to see more and more now that it's like easier to put out content in the age of the internet. Like, people are making way more games than they ever were in the past. People are putting all sorts of shows up on YouTube, and all sorts of webcomics and all these things. And I think a lot of the times people would like just kind of make something new in the spirit of the fan works that they'd made before. But now more people who do fan works to start out, which is like, I think, of extremely common thing these days, where you start out, you build an audience in a fan community, and then you go branch out into your own thing. You're just going to see more of that happening. Like, a recent example that I found out about was the game Freedom Planet actually started out as a Sonic fan game, which might seem a little obvious just because of the gameplay there, but it literally was like a game with Sonic characters and everything, and then they just built it out into an original IP with new characters, and I think that really paid off for them.
Welcome back. We hope that you enjoyed that interview with Bobby Schroeder. The full interview is available for our patrons at patreon.com/PauseCast show. It's available for as little as $1 per month. That gets you access to this bonus content. In terms of our public release schedule for that, we're looking at having that full interview released to everybody on May 8th, 2017. But for right now, it's early access for patrons. So thank you for listening to that. We hope you enjoyed. Mark, to wrap up this week, because we've had a lot going on this week, this is probably going to be like the longest episode that we publish ever.
I think it certainly is, especially with the interview edited in.
Well, I mean, even with the interview, this is a pretty long, like, without the interview, pretty long episode. With the interview, this
Super
might
long.
actually go beyond the 2016 wrap up, which is currently our longest episode.
How long's that one?
It's just about 2 hours.
Okay.
I think it's a little bit shy of 2 hours. So this is going to be our longest episode, which is really great. And I'm excited to be able to do that. It's really great.
Yeah.
Mark, you're on the internet places, right? Where can people find you?
Yes, I'm on Twitter at HonestUniverse, and I blog as well, though not about video games, at honestuniverse.com. What about you?
I am on the internet as Cockatiel Cutie on most places. Twitter, Tumblr. I mean, Twitter's basically the thing I use. I'm on Tumblr at the URL bird.school as well. Thank you again to our patron, Ash Yee, for supporting the show. We really appreciate it, and every bit of money that we're going to get from this is going to go towards improving the show. That's kind of why we have some goals kind of set out. And that includes eventually looking at buying higher quality equipment. So, thank you very much for your support. We appreciate it. I think that's going to do it for us this week. Thank you so much for listening, and we really hope that you enjoyed the special interview and the upcoming spoiler cast for Night in the Woods. Really hope that you will enjoy that.
I'm sure you'll have fun as well, being able to talk about all this stuff.
Yeah, it should be really interesting. So I'm looking forward to that conversation.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for tuning in. If you'd like to consider giving us a rating or review on iTunes, it would really help us out. You can do that by going to bit.ly/PauseCast PauseCast-iTunes. I really have to make that URL shorter at some point.
It's pretty easy to remember.
I mean, it's easy enough to remember. Yeah, it's just a little bit long to say. But you can go to that URL, bit.ly/PauseCast-iTunes, and you can give us a rating or a review. Every bit helps us out and gives us a little bit more visibility, which is always good. Let's see. We're on Twitter. We're at PauseCast Show on Twitter. We are on the Gmails, pausecastshow@gmail.com. If you email us, we've got a ton of free video games to give you. Wow. We still have copies of XCOM 2, Dragon's Dogma, Project Cars, and just a fuck ton more. There's some good video games in there. And you can get them for free by going to your email client of choice, emailing us, pausecastshow@gmail.com. Send us a question. We'll send you a video game in response, just because you're awesome. And because, holy shit, I have so many video games to give away. I'm going to have more by the time this is up. The Humble Monthly is happening, so...
Oh, and you've got some of it already?
Yeah, and I don't know... Well, I don't know if I have more of it already, because it's a mystery right now. I got The Witness as my, starting thing, and now I have to see what else is coming.
Right.
If it's anything like the last bits have been, it's going to be extremely good.
Cool.
So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you for joining us this week on PauseCast. And we will see you next week.